Hello and welcome to this second part of creating tables and graphs in Excel. In this part of the video I plan to produce a graph of your Hooke's Law results. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is to open up your file. Hopefully you've saved it with a sensible name in a directory that you can find. And here's mine now. Okay, while I'm doing this, I want you to remember that if at any point you need some extra help, you can just pause the video, you can replay the video, and you can go over it several times. So this is the graph that or the table that we generated in last session's video. And what we're now wanting to do is we're now wanting to plot a graph of force against extension. Hopefully I'll go through this nice and simply, and things won't go wrong, but we'll see how much editing I need to do. Just some of the language. When you've talked in school, you've probably talked about a line graph, and that's what we're hoping to produce, a line graph of your force against extension. However, Excel refers to this as a scatter graph, so it's something that you'll need to consider. So the first thing we need to do is to highlight the data that we're going to plot the graph of. In this case, it's the force against the extension. Hopefully I'll take you through step by step. Now the first thing we need to do is highlight the data in column B, where our forces are. So as I normally do, and I'm sure you'll know, compress the left-hand mouse button, highlight the data by dragging it down. Now, before you let go, put your finger on the control button, okay? And then let go of the mouse. What that does is it means that you're holding on to that data while we go to the next column that we want to plot a graph of, which is the extension column. You don't need to do the control button if the columns are side by side, but in our table, they're not. So if I hold down the control button and then I start highlighting column H, just as before, pressing down the left-hand mouse button, dragging it down with the scroll bar, and now I can take my finger off the control button, and you should have highlighted the two columns that we want to plot a graph of. Now I'm hoping as well that the column on the left becomes your X axis and the column on your right becomes your Y axis. Sorry, I'll have to do that again. Okay, and then we're going to go up to the top of the screen where it says insert. And what we're going to insert is a chart. So we're looking at this part of the ribbon, that's chart. It's not the easiest chart to see, and it's this button here, which is called an insert XY scatter graph. So we're going to click on that bit there. And although these look what we want to do, we actually want this graph here. So we want this first one, a scatter graph, and it says compare at least two sets of values or pairs of data and show the relationships. That's what we want to do. So look at your data. This looks not bad. I've not chosen the best set of data. So there are sort of mistakes in this, but I just wanted you to use a real set of data. So we've already got the right idea. If you end up with two lines, it's probably because you've got a blank in the document, in which case just highlight the data. So go and do the same thing again, but don't highlight the headings, just the data source. Now the problem with this is it's very small and it's on the same page as we've got before. Okay, we want it on a separate page to fill the page. So you need to go along to the tabs at the top, click on chart design, and we're going to move the chart. Okay, so move this chart to another sheet. So that's what we're going to do. Click on there. We're going to put it in a new sheet and we're going to call it something sensible. So let's call it Hooke's Law. And I suggest you put your name on it as well, because they're all going to look very similar. When you click OK, that brings up my graph in a completely new table, and you can see that that fills the page, and that's much better because it concentrates on what we've got. Now it's nothing like what we want to finish with. And before, I've recommended that we click on some of these things here and chosen graphs that are templates that are ready made. But what I've found is none of these at the moment correspond to the graph that's closest to the graph we want to do. Although there is one, this one here, okay, these little dots are a real problem and the lines are a real problem. So what I'm going to recommend is, rather than you picking these ready-made templates, we're going to start from scratch and do this one ourselves. So the first thing we want to do is we want to click on this little plus symbol in the top right hand corner, and that gives us the elements we might want to put in our table. Now, it's not fixed, we can go back and change these as well, but we want our axes labelled, so tick that. We do want a chart title on our graph, so we're going to tick that. We do want a chart title, we do want grid lines, and eventually we're going to want a trend line, but at the moment I suggest we don't tick that because that might get in the way of trying to edit our points. So if we just click with that, and then if you unclick that, that goes away. So now you can see that we have two boxes so that we can type in our data. Again, I'm hoping that you remember which is which. So make sure that you look and check. So our last point is 1 and between 3 and 4, 3.5 and 4. So if I'm just not sure, go back to your table. So along the bottom is my biggest point is 1. So that's going to be my force. Up the side, 3.75 is my extension. That's exactly how I want to do it. Okay, so I've got here that this is my force. So I can type in force. Don't forget to put the units, which is newtons. We tend to put a slash solders, but you can put it in brackets if you want. You can type the word, but I recommend you just typing /n. And I'm trying to change the font, but I can't do that at the moment. And that comes up there, force in newtons. Again, click on this title and then go up to this bottom box here, and then you can type it in, extension, okay, slash, and my extension was measured in centimetres. Yours might be measured in millimetres, meters. Just make sure that it's correct. Okay, and enter, and that corrects that there. If you're needing a different font, so for example, you're wanting to superscript something, so you would say t squared or meters per second, then you've got the subscript and the superscript here, but it's quite tricky. You have to highlight the buttons there. If you do it just clicking here, the whole thing will be superscript, so that's not what we want. What I am going to do though, is just for me, so to make it clearer for you, I'm going to increase my font size of the whole document. Hopefully, I don't recommend you do that, but that's just so that you can see what's going on. Now, as you look here, my title is given the word extension, which seems weird. It always tends to give you this term up here as a title, and that's not what we want. So we can put a proper title in here. So again, we can either type in this box here and overwrite that. Book's Law, be good in English, and Mrs. H. Okay, or we could have typed that in this box here and return to enter it. So it's looking not bad, like a graph. A couple of things we don't want to, we want to change. The video is too big, so this is the end of part 1, and if you now load part 2, you'll find that it completely carries on. Thank you for getting this far.